This professor was representing a member of organized crime from New Jersey that was charged with murder that he didn't commit, and he needed somebody in the witness protection program to testify on this person's behalf, and he didn't know how to contact this person in witness protection program. I was contacted. I got in touch with the attorney. The attorney flew me to New Haven, and that's how it happened. Not blood family members. Yes, family members, family people I knew from back in the 80s, from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. I wanted to go back home, and I couldn't go back home because I was labeled a rat. Okay, and I wanted to prove, and this opportunity was brought to me. Do this, and you can prove yourself.
We are about to watch what I think is the most cryptic parole hearing we have ever seen. Now, he was a man who was locked up for 30 years for doing a Ponzi scheme. This is fascinating. There may even be a movie on this man. And just to give an insert of one of the many articles that we'll unpack at the end of the hearing is, how did a scam artist who once was in the federal witness protection program secure office space in one of the most prestigious law schools in the country, as in Yale? And this is a fascinating story, in my opinion. Let's jump in, and I'll unpack it with the details at the end.
Sir?
Yeah, hit it.
He's on his way. Sorry, he's
Thank you.
coming.
Sounds good, thanks.
He should be in a few minutes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Where do I sit? Sit here?
Right, that's the sitting chair to see you can sit in this. That chair. Got it?
Yep, got it. Thank you.
Good?
Yep, fine, thank you.
All right.
Morning, Mr. Cuccinello, how are you?
Fine and dandy. Good morning.
All right. Morning. We're gonna get ready in a couple minutes and start, okay?
Okay.
Okay, they're no longer here.
Good morning. My name is Parole Officer Mack. Today is Wednesday, July 10th, 2024, and this is a hearing of the Connecticut Board of Pardons and Paroles. The following board members are present this morning, and by stating their names on record, certify they have reviewed and statutorily required documents and available pertinent information in preparation of this hearing.
Good morning, Joy Chance.
Deborah Smith Palmieri.
Good morning, I'm panel member Page.
Thank you, board members. Sir, please state your name and inmate number for the record.
Ralph Cuccinello, 351544.
This hearing is being conducted in consideration of the parole application for Ralph Cuccinello, number 351544. He is serving a total effective sentence, 30 years suspended after 21 years with 5 years of probation to follow for larceny 1, Cora, and larceny 3. As of today, records reflect a parole eligibility date of June 1st, 2015. There is no victim impact in this case. There is an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed and shows the offender has completed the following programs. Work assignment, been a teacher's aide for 7 years. Good intentions, bad choices, voices, and he is waitlisted for addiction services referral. Utilizing the statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score for the RT falls within the low range of risk for recidivism. Mr. Cuccinello, this is your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole. You may begin.
I had prepared something, but I figured that you've heard it all before. I just really, as I told Parole Officer Mack when he came to interview me, I finally faced my mortality, and with my facing mortality over the years, I gained empathy. That's something I never had, and basically now I'm just falling apart physically, and I want to take advantage of what I have left to make amends and do what I was expected to do in the past. I mean, I do have something prepared, but I stand ready to answer any and all questions.
Okay,
And,
Mr. Cuccinello, appreciate your opening comments. I just want to clarify something before we begin our questions.
Okay.
You waived your discretionary parole in 2016.
Yes,
Can
ma'am.
you tell us why you want today's hearing?
Yes, ma'am. At 2016, there was no way I was ready emotionally, mentally, or physically for parole. I was still arrogant, and I still was blustering and all that stuff. All that. I was ready a couple of years after that, and it was then that I found out I had wrong advice. I thought it was. I did not know Connecticut, once you waived your parole, you could not get a parole hearing again. I thought it was like other states. When you waive the initial parole hearing, you can be reconsidered for a parole hearing. So when I did apply for a parole hearing 2 years after I had waived it, and that's the first time I found out that it was done. So when you instituted the reconsideration of a waiver of parole, I jumped on the opportunity, first chance I could get. I feel I'm ready now.
Okay, so the way it's going to work today is we're each going to take turn to ask you questions.
Okay.
And then when we're finished with the questions, we're going to deliberate on the record. You can listen but not say anything. And then we will give you our decision.
Okay, ma'am.
So I'm going to ask Mrs. Smith and Mary to begin with questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Cuccinello, I had a similar question about waiving your parole in 2016. So now you feel you're ready to be back out in the community?
Do I feel that I'm ready?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you feel you're not a risk to the community any longer?
Not any longer physically or mentally. I one correction in what Mr. Max said. I don't know. He said I've been working in the school for 7 years, but I've been working for 11 years straight, and that's a record. And I've turned utmost respect for teachers, and it's sort of like that cliche when you see a light bulb go on. When I saw some of these guys get GEDs, some in their 40s and 50s that couldn't read, I feel like I had purpose. I never felt I had purpose before. I felt I had something to prove criminally. But now I'm fine, and I really do feel I'm ready for parole.
Okay, thank you. So you can appreciate, I'm sure, that we look at the charges that you're before us today.
Yes, ma'am.
And your criminal history.
Yes, ma'am.
And I say to myself, well, to commit your types of offenses, you don't need to be ambulatory. You don't need to be moving from place to place. You can simply do it from behind a desk, from behind a computer. So why would we think that you've changed?
First of all, I can't. It's very hard for me to get behind a desk and a computer, and where I intend to go, there's going to be no more atmosphere than what I had. My goal ultimately is to relocate to Maryland with a group of people that just deal with ex-offenders in the Baltimore area. And I mean, the monitoring there would be extremely strict and all that. And mindful, I'm 72 years old, and there's a lot of work that has to be done physically. I'm not interested in that anymore. I'm not interested.
All right, so let's talk about the offense that you're incarcerated for, the larceny and the racketeering, and then you accrued another charge for larceny third when you were already sentenced and incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the first offense from the mid 2000s, 2005, 2006. There's indications that you stole up to $1 million from the victims. Where did all that money go?
Not to me.
Where did it go?
I was incarcerated in the federal system before that. And when I was incarcerated, I was incarcerated in the WITSEC unit. And I was shunned by family, shunned by relatives, shunned by everything. Money went back. I wanted to prove a point. I wanted to regain acceptance, money went to other people. Some of it went to me, no doubt about it. And some went to the supposed victims, but the majority of the money went to other people.
Victims? Yeah, I know. So I guess I need better clarification on that. When it went to other people, family members, other people involved in your types of crimes?
Not blood family members. Yes, family members, people I knew from back in the 80s, from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s.
So why would you give them money? I guess I'm a little bit.
I wanted to go back home. I wanted to go back home, and I couldn't go back home because I was labeled a rat. Okay, and I wanted to prove, and this opportunity was brought to me. Do this, and you can prove yourself. But mindful, I take full responsibility for it. I could have walked away. But the other thing that you should know is that some of that money wasn't whatever amount you have there, went back to the victims. If a victim asked to be repaid, they were repaid. That's what I was directed to do, and that's what I did.
Directed to do by who?
People that were concerned that I was going to tell that they were involved in this.
Oh, you're very cryptic. You should, I would think you'd be beyond all this.
No, I'm not cryptic. I'm not cryptic. They're dead. They're dead, these people. All right? I'm not cryptic.
Okay.
I'll take responsibility for the money, ma'am. I'll take responsibility for the money. Okay?
Okay. So at the time of sentencing, you pled guilty in January.
Right.
And sentencing was put off till August.
Right.
And
Yes,
you
ma'am.
were supposed to come back to court with $300,000 for restitution to the victims. And by my reading of the transcript, that did not occur. And your attorney was trying to get a stay of execution, which would allow you an additional 90 days to gather the $300,000 towards restitution. Did you ever make restitution?
No, ma'am. And that should answer some of your cryptic concerns. The people that promised me that they were going to repay that amount of money, all of a sudden I was forgotten.
So were these people that you say are now dead and that you gave money, they were involved in this scam with you?
Yes, ma'am.
And why were they never charged?
The lead investigator for the case, basically most of the victims were involved in an Irish American community in Connecticut, and the lead investigator for the state's attorney's office was involved with that Irish American community, and he just centered on me, and it was.
What's your ability to make restitution when you get it, when you're released? I mean, whether it's today, you still have 5 years of probation.
Do you mean if I have any money put aside?
Well, money put aside, what do you think you'll have any? I know you're 73 years old. Do you think you'll have 72?
Yeah, I have. There's been contact for a book and some media interest.
Why now? I mean, you've been in jail for quite some time. Why is that a book deal now coming to light? Or
it's been going on for years. I mean, and it's been the first time it was I don't know how when I first came to Cheshire, they contacted me, and I just like put it off. When
you were arrested, they arrested you in Rhode Island. Were
Yes,
you
ma'am.
leaving? Was your plan to leave the country?
No.
No?
I didn't have my passport was confiscated.
And why were you in Rhode Island and lived in Branford?
Friends had invited me out there for the weekend. It was 4th of July weekend.
There's an indication that you were living in that hotel for a month.
No. We were using it back and forth, but not living there. It was a Marriott Courtyard. People have rooms there. I was in Branford, going back and forth.
Yes, your
Going
address,
backward.
your home address was Branford, but the police report indicates that they had information you'd been staying at that Marriott for about a month.
On and off. It wasn't just me. It wasn't, no.
So you have this large gap in your criminal history from 1995 to 2002. You were not incarcerated. What were you doing?
It's in the witness protection program.
And were you removed from that program because of another arrest?
No,
Why were you removed from the program?
I never was removed. I just left. It was voluntarily.
And the entire time that you were living in the witness protection program, you didn't have any criminal activity?
No.
Were you ever arrested in that time frame? What were you doing?
During that time, I was working in California and working in New Mexico.
What type of work were you doing?
Research in California and research in New Mexico.
When you were sentenced and they ordered the pre-sentence investigation, why didn't you cooperate?
I didn't even know they ordered a pre-sentence. And as far as this, I'm hearing this for the first time.
Well, there's a pre-sentence report and it says that you refused to be interviewed.
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, so Mr. Cuccinello, it's hard for me to understand. You stood in court in January, pled guilty. Judge Damiani ordered a pre-sentence report, brought you back bring you back to court in August with the indication that you would pay some restitution. Now, you're somebody who is obviously very bright. You have some law school. I don't know how much behind you, or at least that's what our records indicate. Did you go to law school at all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it's hard for me to appreciate that you wouldn't have had a better understanding of what was happening in court the day that you pled guilty.
No, I understood it completely. I thought we waived the pre-sentence report.
No.
That was my understanding.
No, there's no indication that you waived the pre-sentence report.
Well, I, as far as I know, no one ever came to interview me. The only interview I had between the time of the guilty plea and the sentencing was from the postal inspectors and from the Marshal Service.
Your
It was,
attorney requested and discussed with you not to do the interview.
He did?
That's what it says here.
Well, I thought we waived it.
Okay. So in all the charges that you've had, all the fraud, the bad checks, credit cards, did you ever make restitution for any of that?
Yes, ma'am. This is the only case that I've never made restitution. I made that clear at the day of sentencing too, because I thought I was gonna have access to that $300,000.
Where was the $300,000 supposed to come from?
People that received the $300,000. I was promised payment for a lawyer and restitution.
Well, it looks like you had a court-appointed attorney for the plea, and then you had a private attorney.
He was never paid. I was found out he was never paid.
Attorney Barry?
Yes.
Okay. So who came up with the idea of this green cards scam?
It was going around the area before that, in the Hampton area, and I forgot, Immigration for a Small Planet was a group of people that were doing the same thing. And I guess this investigator had gotten involved in it, and somebody heard about it and said, how hard would it be to get a green card? And I looked into it, researched it, saw the paperwork that was responsible for it, and said, as far as I knew nothing about immigration. As far as I know, you just fill out the forms and do this. One thing led to another. I'm going to take responsibility. I came up with the idea.
Okay, and the additional monies that you coerced the people out of for things like that, and taxes that you told them would be forthcoming. I'm trying to think what were some of the other reasons that you gave them for giving you additional money beyond the initial $5,000. What was that all about?
Medical costs, if they paid for medical costs, they were taken to a medical, I took them to a medical clinic. Taxes, as far as I was concerned, the people that had legitimate social security numbers and stuff, we paid their taxes.
Well,
They paid
there's one victim that the judge speaks about that gave you over $200,000.
He was a gentleman from England. And yeah,
Right, and when he went back to his account, there was $32.
well, he knew, he was aware of that. And it was, I take full responsibility for that.
What
That
do
was
you take responsibility for?
leading him on and lying to him.
So then you're incarcerated, and then you commit this other charge of larceny third, where you're taking advantage of the other inmates. Why were you doing that?
Well, this is the whole issue. When I got to where I was at after the sentence, it was McDougal. People there knew what I was there for. There was one other person there that was a member that knew me from WITSEC. And they had a guy on the unit that was there for a pretty heinous sex crime. And they knew he had money, and they were playing with him, and they asked me to do what I had to do to arrange it for them. And I did that. I took his money and gave the money away. But that was basically it. I take responsibility for that.
It sounds to me, I mean, you keep saying I take responsibility, but the undertone is that you see yourself as also being coerced.
No, absolutely not.
into-
In this instance, I'll say yes, but before the other ones, no. This instance, yes. This instance, I want nothing to do with it, but I felt that I had to.
So the first instance, what involving all the money you took from the immigrants, did you get any money from that? And
Oh,
if so, how much?
Absolutely.
How much money do you think you realized from that?
Maybe about 70,000.
Thank you very much. I have no additional questions.
Okay. So, Mr. Cuccinello, what was your position at Yale University Law School?
I was a senior research assistant.
You were hired by the university?
No, not by a professor.
Okay. Now, how did you get to be in that, to apply for that position?
This professor was representing a member of organized crime from New Jersey that was charged with murder that he didn't commit, and he needed somebody in the witness protection program to testify on this person's behalf, and he didn't know how to contact this person in witness protection program. I was contacted. I got in touch with the attorney. The attorney flew me to New Haven, and that's how it happened.
When did you actually begin at Yale? And what was your expectations when you got there?
Like 2004. I mean, he flew me from New Haven to Bradley, and I expected to spend 10 days. And that was it.
From New Haven to Bradley.
No, he flew me from New Mexico to Bradley, picked me up at Bradley, put me up in a hotel in downtown New Haven, and I expected to spend 10 days.
And what did you expect to get out of it?
I was going to help my friend in New Jersey that was charged with murder that he didn't commit, and get this professor in touch with the witness that he wanted to get in touch with.
So how did you come up with this program to steal all this money from the immigrants. And according to the state's attorney, there were 60 immigrants that was interviewed, and all of them get statements. So it's not just the gentleman from England that you took his $112,000, but also there was another woman who was encouraged by you to invest in the Russell Trust Fund, which was Yale University Trust Fund for their library. And that's what you were using to get the additional funds, because this particular woman gave you an additional $40,000 in addition to the $5,000. And then she referred some of her associates to you. So when did all that come about?
After I was there for a while at New Haven, I realized that the research was going to take more than 10 days. He had me set up in the New Haven Public Library. When he realized that couldn't work, he got me a pass to work in the Yale Law School. I couldn't stay there because I had to go back to California to explain to the marshals what was going on. I flew back to California, told them, came back to New Haven. He sublet an apartment for me for the summer. We thought it was going to be over. This scam came years after 2004. It must have came 2006, late 2005, 2006. I did not come to New Haven with these
So that
intentions.
was years later.
No.
That was like a year and a half later.
Yeah, right. We were sitting in an apartment that Yale owned, and one of the Irish immigrants happened to work in the pub next door and explained about this, how he wanted to get a green card and go back and forth to Ireland. And that's where the germ of the idea came to my mind.
Okay. So you instigated all of this a year and a half after you were at Yale.
Yes.
And how many people did you think you scammed?
You said 60. I have no idea. I really don't.
Well, it's not my numbers. It's the state's attorney who said they interviewed 60.
Well, if
Victims.
Inspector Reardon interviewed 60, I'm sure he did. It might have been more. So I know there were husbands and wives involved.
Right. So what are your thoughts about what happened to some of that people? And I'm going to use an example of this woman who said to you, I want to go back and visit my family. Is it safe? Will I be allowed to come back? And you told her, yes, go ahead. Well, when she went back, she could not enter the country. And, you were left with all the funds that she gave you.
That's when the scam started to fall apart. People had gone back and forth before that, and I don't even remember that with the Russell Trust. I thought it was Sequoia. I thought they used the term Sequoia Trust. But if you're saying Russell Trust, I mean I'm not sure. But the man from England, I remember.
That's what was said in here, and the interview was with you, and it said you encouraged her to invest in the Russell Trust Fund that you were involved with, and you told them all about the high yield of interest rate, and so they were encouraged by that and had other people come to give you more money. So what are your thoughts about all your victims? Because you certainly
No, I had no thoughts for the victims back then. I got to be perfectly honest with you. No thoughts for the victims after sentencing. Now, as I told Parole Officer Mack, I'm haunted by it. I know you've heard it before. I really feel badly. I feel badly for the people that have been stranded overseas. I was contacted by some congressional committees when Trump was in office, and before that about immigration. I would never give up these names. I feel bad for what I did. And I'm sure you've heard it all before. I really do. And I don't know what I could do.
Why would they want you to give up the names of the immigrants?
Tell me. I have no idea. There was a
And why would
congressman. congressman from Ohio that wanted it.
So I have one other question. So there was an order of restitution for $10,265 that was ordered to be paid to victims with the initial JF. Did that victim get that money?
No. That's the crime that I was talking to the first woman about. That's the one that happened in McDougal. That was that.
So he never got the money.
As far as I know.
Because Judge Shandlung issued that order. It
Yes, I
was
did.
not the original judge. Okay. Okay.
I received it in the
So-
mail.
Yeah, so I still don't know where all the money went. I know you tried to explain to my colleague about some went to some of the victims and some went to you via family members. I just want to be a little bit more clear there about
Okay.
where the money went.
I'll take responsibility for $70,000 to $100,000 of the money for my own personal expense. Some of the money went back to pay victims. I mean, if you said 60, this was a typical Ponzi scheme. So it went from victim to pay other people. There were victims that were paid off in full, and there were victims that were paid off with interest. And also, if you look into the history of the travel, there was a lot of travel to Las Vegas, to California, to Europe, and that money was paid to victims or given to victims for their travel. So they would be coerced to get other victims in. It was a Ponzi scheme.
Did that gentleman who had to go live with his brother in Australia, the one who you took his $112,000?
Right.
Did he get any of it back?
I think he did, yes. I mean, I can't swear to it, and he didn't get it from me, so I don't know.
Who
But I
would
know-
he have gotten it back from? Because when he checked his account,
He was supposed to get it back from somebody in Ireland. I'm not sure though, so I have no idea. I have no idea.
okay, Mr. Cuccinello, I'm done for now. If I think of any, I'll get back to you, but I'm gonna turn it over to Mrs. Page.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm going to go back to the original question, which was what you did with the money. So what things did you buy for yourself with the money?
Okay, I pay for rent. Rental cars. I never bought a car while I was in Connecticut, but paid for rental cars. Living expenses, clothes. I took travel. That's it.
That's my question, Madam Chair. Thank you.
So can I just circle back? So when you were asked about the victims, you referred to them as supposed victims. What did you
Some
mean
of them.
by?
Some of them. Some of them were paid back in full, and some of them got more than double their money.
Well, they're still victims though.
Absolutely.
You understand?
Absolutely.
Don't have
Absolutely.
proof. So,
Absolutely.
And when you say, who are they paid back? Through the court or through you?
Through me.
And did
People
you
ca-
provide?
People came to Union Station in New Haven. They wanted their money back. I would meet them at Union Station and give them their money back.
And, at the time of sentencing, the judge referred to you as a serial con artist. What do you think about that?
I think he was absolutely right at the time.
And do you think that somebody who is categorized in that way can change?
I think after a while, yeah, with help, yes, I think they can. Or else it's yes, I really do. I mean, I know it's hard for you to understand, but the light went on when I saw people starting to get their GED and stuff like that. It really went on. There is a purpose. There is a better purpose. I don't need to prove myself anymore. I've learned humility, and I'm facing mortality.
So when you say that with help, what help have you received? That's helping.
Psychological programs, counseling with the education staff, religious help.
Well, aside from working in the education department, which, thank you for doing that. It's so helpful for individuals that when they are released to have their GED, it certainly makes their employment search a little bit more easier, makes them more successful in the community. I have that you completed the Good Intentions, Bad Choices program and Voices. Is there any other programs that you've done that we're not aware of that have helped you make this transition?
There was a mentoring program. I've been helping the people in the True program, but I won't go upstairs as a mentor. A literacy program. We've literally taught people between 40 and 60 years old that weren't able to read, taught them to read. That's it.
There's one thing that sort of kind of gnaws at me.
Okay.
So how much education have you had?
A lot.
So you have your bachelor's degree. Do you have a master's degree?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And you have years in law or some law school.
Yep.
And it's hard for me to understand how somebody that has benefited from that level of an education at some very prestigious schools, and this is how you chose to use that education.
You're not the only person to feel that way. My mother and father felt the same way. My siblings felt the same way. It's hard to understand the environment in the Italian American community in New Jersey when you look up to certain people that you shouldn't look up to relatives that you shouldn't look up to, and your mother and father have been struggling, and you see flashy things and you want these flashy things, and you go to schools and you see people with flashy things, and you want the same thing, and you look for an easy way out, and you're glib and you're able to do it, and I fell into the trap. Yes, you're absolutely. Sometimes at night, now, the past couple of years, I realize all I've wasted. Okay. And that's something that's going to haunt me for the rest of my life, no matter what happens. I mean, I'm going to die alone, and that's crazy. All right. There's no reason to do that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so I have one or two more. So, when did you find out about your health? I don't want the details. I just want to know when, because you keep talking about your health. So whatever you found out.
Right during COVID.
Okay. And when did you felt empathy for the victim?
When I wanted to apply for parole, and I found out I couldn't apply for parole. So 2018.
Okay. So you couldn't apply in 2018. Did you make any attempt to apply for a commutation?
I couldn't do it. I applied for commutation, and I couldn't do it because I never had I was rejected because I didn't have police reports. I was arrested by Inspector Reardon from the state's attorney's office, and the commutation board rejected my application because there was no police reports.
So you did not try to get your police report yourself?
There was no police report, ma'am. I was arrested by Inspector Reardon. No police department arrested me.
Okay. So let me just go back and get some clarification. You talk about empathy. What made the light bulb go off for you? That you now find you have empathy?
I came across a group, 2 or 3 inmates in here during around 2017, 2018, and I realized how their parents and their family were hurting because of financial, they were scammed. And I never put faces to, I obviously I came face to face with my victims, but I had no dealings with them. And I realized what I did and I could have stopped it. That's basically what happened. I became involved with a group of people from the Universal Church, the Universalists, and back in 2016 and 2017, because I admired Ted Sorensen, and they've opened up the whole thing for me. And it's people now, and I always was in it.
Where is that church?
Boston. We're in correspondence all the time, and it's people. It never was people. It was always Ralph. Now it's people.
Okay. All right, we're going to discuss your case, and just so that you know, we know you committed offenses in New Jersey, California, Connecticut, Washington, Rhode Island. You were with the feds and you served time in Canada.
Okay. Some of those, I would just clarification on my behalf. I'll speak on my behalf. Some of those charges were consolidated together. It was all part of the same thing, but that is absolutely the case. Can I address one thing that you said before that really got me? You said I was referred to addiction services. I have never done a okay. I thought I heard that because I've never done a drug in my life, and I don't want that on my record. I don't want that on my record because if
I did, it's on his wait list for the referral.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
It was on your OAP. That was what the parole officer had indicated.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we are going to deliberate now. You can listen, but you can't say anything.
Okay, thank you for your consideration.
So I think we all listened to Mr. Cuccinello explain his situation at the time of the offense and where he saw himself. You know, there's so many victims that will never be made whole. This idea of a book deal, you know, it's all such hypothetical, and all these people for all these years have been harmed, not just physically, but, you know, emotionally. Their lives have been turned upside down, and that will never be corrected. I know sometimes that we look at financial crimes as somewhat victimless, but I think that this is very, very different.
Yeah, well, I don't think victimless is the right term, but I think maybe the propensity for violence with those kinds of offenses.
Right, it's really now
Exactly.
a violent crime.
Right.
He does score low in terms of risk to recidivate. I think that has a lot to do with his age, and again, that it is a financial crime. He's got offenses all over the country with various victims, very few which have been made whole, it seems. I appreciate that he's been working in the education department for all these years. As I said, it's such a benefit for somebody to leave the Department of Corrections with having furthered their education, makes them that much more marketable. I struggle quite a bit with the explanation for the offenses. There's a lot of undercurrent of implications of this one was paid or that one was paid. I'm assuming he's talking maybe about organized crime that was involved. I'm gonna just guess by some of the other documents that we had and some of his prior offenses, the fact that he was in the witness protection program.
And he was charged with Cora, so
Exactly.
or convicted of.
But yes, you know, I know he has a verified sponsor in Baltimore who's willing to come and pick him up. However, I do not have him voted to parole today. Primarily, I do think he's a risk to the community. It's a public safety risk. I'm not convinced that he has found empathy or humility. I think, just some of his references to supposed victims speaks to kind of where he still views the crime and the victims of the crime. So I do not, his criminal record just is a pattern of offenses against people and financial problems.
I absolutely agree with everything you say, Mrs. Smith-Palmieri. I also have been denied, and I have it due to public safety risk.
I do not haven't voted to parole either, Madam Chair. I have him denied with no new hearing date.
Right, and I had an insurance coming out of history.
I have the same.
How about you?
That's fine.
Okay. So in the case of Ralph Cuccinello, inmate number 351544, there is a motion to deny request for discretionary parole for these reasons: criminal history and nature and circumstances of the current offenses. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Motion carries. So, Mr. Cuccinello, unfortunately, we could not grant you discretionary parole, but we wish you the best of luck and appreciate you working with the inmates to help tutor them with their GED.
This concludes the hearing for Ralph Cuccinello, number 351544.
So how do we unpack this? Now, to start, I want to say that I watched this multiple times, and my personal emotions and feelings evolved over time. And then they finally cemented into a place where I am now. And that is after reading all of the documents that Richard pulled up on this case. And there's a lot. I mean, this made the New York Times. This has been a story at one time. And I hope that they do make a movie out of it. I don't know why it's not on American Greed. Maybe because the dollar amount is quite small, that it didn't quite make it to American Greed, but the story is large and shouldn't be misconstrued by just the dollar amount. You know, when I first saw this case, I said, like, it's $1 million. Like he got a 30-year sentence. He's been locked up for all this time. Let him out. I get it was a bad interview, but it was also like a cryptic interview. And another thing that really got me triggered in this hearing is that it seems to me that the board is completely oblivious to what is going on. Now, that's just my impression. Can they truly be that naive? Can they truly be that disconnected from this world that he's clearly talking about? Can they not interpret his crypticness? There was a part of that that was just ticking me off too. And I don't know if I should give them the benefit of the doubt. I just don't know, because we've seen them make decisions that just make me question their how they think. But it's pretty clear to me, I believe, that he turned down parole in 2016 because he knew he was going to get offed. I mean, that's my takeaway. And what a crazy, pathetic, ridiculous rule that Connecticut has. Well, if you turn down parole once, you're done. You can't ask for parole again. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I really see the thought process through that system. Like, what? I guess they realized it was ridiculous too, and they changed it. But how did I mean? And then he's like, "Yeah, those people they're dead now." I mean, yeah, they're dead. Why do you think he applies for parole? He was labeled a rat. He was I guess I don't know, extorted into running this scheme, it seems. I mean, the people were supposed to pay for his lawyer, supposed to cover him, and they did. I mean, can you see what he's saying? Why? He actually says, yeah, my family members, not blood relatives. And he's like, it's like the board just didn't seem to get it at all. That was frustrating for me. And then, I felt saddened by watching this old broken man, and it looks like he must have been, a really good-looking, smart, the perfect scammer in his time. And in some ways, it was quite clever how he did it, and we'll go over that. But like he said, he somehow ended up in Yale with a Yale email address, a Yale ID card, and he leveraged that email address and ID cards to create trust for those who wanted to get a green card quickly. And he would charge $5,000. Small amount of money, kind of like, it's strange because it's a complex scheme, but it's not that much money. But the problem is, and this is where it becomes a bigger than the money scam, I think, is that families were screwed. These are people that, like they said, they would leave the country and not be able to get back in. They thought they had a green card. So you're messing around with a lot of victims. And in the document, I see it was 57 that were interviewed. And it's a little vicious, right? It's not just money. It's a lot more than that. It is people's lives, so to speak. And then I read more about his crimes, and he was a lifelong con artist, which he didn't deny, but he did a lot of, well, we can read through it. He stole from his wife's mother. He stole from, he doesn't have empathy, and he seems to, you can kind of see that in the hearing, and he kind of seems to admit it. I don't have empathy. I didn't have empathy. Now I do because, but I don't think he really doesn't. And you might argue that, yeah, if he got out, he probably would find a way, even in his poor physical health. The guy can barely move. He probably would find a way to start again. I don't know if he can help himself, but I should have told you this at the beginning. His full term date is 11/30/2025. At the time of that's in a year and a few months. So if your heart is hurting for him, maybe that can ease some of it. He's not that old. He's not in good shape. He's born in 52. And they just didn't seem to get it that this guy, and then he talks about and I believe every word he said. He might be a scam artist. I believe him when he talks about the governor or the mayor, or who was this? No, senator. I believe all that stuff. But who knows? Maybe you never know when. Oh, then the story about how he scammed the cockroach. That was great. I mean, that's just like another layer for the book that that I hope they write about, in the movie I hope they make. That he claims he was extorted into stealing money from the roach, and he picked up another felony. I mean, that's it doesn't look good for him when he's in prison and he picks up another charge, which it doesn't seem he's serving any time for, which is quite interesting, isn't it? Okay, so there's so many articles. The problem with this is that there's so much that I can unpack, and I don't even know where to start, but I'll just start with this. They should make an American Greed. I know it's not a lot of money, but it was so unique what he did. Okay, Ralph Cuccinello has claimed to be several things in what authorities call a long history as a scam artist. He's been a television producer, a psychologist, even a nursing home operator. But investigators say it took a phony affiliation with Yale for Gosh, I know I've heard his name for the past 5 hours. Okay, Cuccinello. But investigators say a phony affiliation with Yale University for Cuccinello to really hit pay dirt. Posing as a law professor with an expertise in immigration law, they say Cuccinello had scammed hundreds of undocumented workers from Ireland into thinking he could secure them a green card for a $5,000 fee. And isn't that interesting? It's like, I don't know if is there anything there, Italian versus Ireland, that they should have known about? Law enforcement officials in New York and Connecticut are scrambling to find all his victims and answer the nagging questions. How did a scam artist who once was in the Federal Witness Protection Program secure office space in one of the most prestigious law schools in the country, as well as a school identification card and email address? And this is the scam. You know, there are scams that you say that you look at and you're like, you know what? You were greedy. You should have known. You can't get 30%, compounding interest. Kind of shame on you. This is different. This is a guy who has a Yale email address. He's saying he's a professor, and he's charging $5,000 to help get a green card. It's a scam that you don't need to. I don't think it's too good to be true applies here. Okay. The word went out to the Irish community all across the country that there was this attorney at the Yale Law School who had found a loophole in the immigration laws and could get you a green card quickly, said Inspector Timothy Reardon of the New Haven State's Attorney's Office. Reardon opened an investigation into Cuccinello a few years ago when the New York City police arrested him on charges of grand larceny and impersonating an attorney. New York police were alerted to the alleged scam by private investigator Mr. Triggs, who was contacted by a couple of Irish immigrants after they paid Cuccinello and didn't get a green card. So it starts with the couple who are, they're like, no, you're messing around with the wrong person. They hire a private investigator, good for them. Cuccinello, 55, was charged in only a few cases in New York because law enforcement officials believe the majority of the crimes occurred in Connecticut on the Yale campus. Irish immigrants flew in from all over the country to New Haven to bring Cuccinello cash, Reardon said. They often just walked into the law school and met with Cuccinello in an office inside the building. Others sent him bank checks through the mail to a Yale post office box. This never could have been pulled off without the credibility of him being part of the Yale Law School, Reardon said. People literally sat in what they thought was his office in the law school and handed him cash. The Yale Law School released a statement Friday saying that Cuccinello was never a paid employee of the law school, although it acknowledges he did have access to the school as a volunteer. Ralph Cuccinello is not now, nor has he ever been a paid employee of the staff member of Yale Law School. Apparently, he has on occasion served as a volunteer research assistant for a particular professor at the law school in connection with the professor's non-law school activities, the statement said. Mr. Cuccinello has never had any relation to the law school's immigration law clinics, and he has not been authorized by the law school or the clinics to undertake any activities or to represent any clients. Upon learning of his arrest, the law school suspended his access to all law school facilities. Yale officials declined to name the professor that Cuccinello apparently worked for, but sources familiar with the investigation said it was Stephen B. Duke, who could not be reached for comment Friday. Duke, who teaches a class called Convicting the Innocent. teaches and writes on criminal law, criminal procedure, evidence, and drug policy. According to the law school biography, he has been at the law school since 1961. So in a different article that I read, they announced that the law professor had taken time off on administrative leave. So, but he apparently got through this all because I looked up his name and he is still currently, all these years later, working as a professor at the law school. So he got away with it. I mean, I don't know what he got away with. Apparently he probably did nothing. I'm not saying he was in on it, but I'm not saying that at all. Oh God, imagine saying something wrong against a Yale law professor. I am just saying that he survived this. He's still working as a professor. Okay, Cuccinello apparently met Duke through the attorney's work in the case in New Jersey. Mobster Martin Tessetta Duke has represented Tessetta over the past 7 years in his efforts to get released from a life sentence. So this is the professor who's helping to get the guy, the mobster. Can you imagine taking a mobster as a client? I mean, that's just too stressful for me. I couldn't, it's like, I'm out of all the clients you can get, you really want to take on a mobster as a client, man. So Cuccinello apparently met Duke through the attorney's work on the case of the New Jersey mobster Martin Tessetta. Duke has represented Tessetta over the past 7 years in his efforts to get released from a life sentence for the 1984 murder of a mob-connected contractor in Ocean County, New Jersey. And what was interesting is that Mr. Ralph said when he spoke about this that this mobster was innocent, which maybe he was. Duke claimed that Tessetta was falsely convicted because prosecutors were aware of an FBI memo that indicated Tessetta was nowhere near the murder scene. Cuccinello submitted a personal affidavit on Tessetta's behalf, according to Cuccinello's former attorney in New Jersey, Jay Sargent. So Ralph lives in a house along the Baneford River, has a colorful past. Court records show that he was convicted in Passaic County, New Jersey in 1996 for bilking several people, including the mother of a woman he ended up marrying briefly. Yep, so he stole money from his mother-in-law and a priest out of at least $250,000. Cuccinello convicted people he was building, convinced people he was building condominiums and needed seed money he never paid back. But even then, he was sentenced. But even though he was sentenced to 30 years in prison in the New Jersey case, it appears he never served time. Wow, I wonder why. I wonder how that happened. That's because he was an informant for the federal government and was placed in the federal witness protection program. So he did become a rat, and that's why he was afraid of getting, as soon as he left the witness protection program, and once he was locked up, he knew he was done then, and he didn't want to get released. But it didn't seem the parole board understood that at all. It really didn't. To me, it seemed like that just went right over their head. It's unclear why we went into the program, although Sargent told the New York Star Ledger in 1996 that Cuccinello had once saved the life of an FBI agent, that the federal government considered him very valuable. Okay, yeah. Who's Sargent? What? Now I'm confused. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly why they did it. Sargent said Friday that the feds always looked out for Cuccinello, and he wasn't surprised to learn that he had gotten into trouble again. Ralph is a very intelligent guy. He liked to live other people's lives and had allegedly misrepresented himself to a whole variety of people in order to get their money. Cuccinello was also convicted of fraud in Santa Barbara, California in 2003 and sentenced to 3 months in prison, although it was unclear whether he went to jail. Authorities have identified more than 200 victims in the Irish green card scam, but believes that just the beginning. Many of the victims are legal immigrants and may be hesitant to file a complaint. Reardon said that the victims who came forward will not have their names turned over to immigration officials. These people are victims, and we need their help in this case. So This was very different than what he explained, right? Didn't what he explained was like he explained it as a Ponzi scheme, as an MLM scheme where people were making investments and he was paying them back. And I didn't read any of that in that article. That seemed like straight up they were paying for services and he didn't deliver it. So, maybe he was scamming us the whole interview. There's a lot to go over here, but we've been here. I'm trying to keep the hearing. We're already over the hour mark. We can go over the whole appeal, but I think we get the point. And I could leave the links in the description. Let me know in the comment section if you prefer if these things went longer. It's not like I like the sound of my voice. It's that I'm trying to bring information that I think is interesting at the end. And of course, you don't need to listen to it because I bring it at the end. I still see people write comments saying, who is that guy talking? Why does he talk so much? And it's like, I'm bringing the unpacking at the end. You don't need to listen to it. I'm not one of those YouTubers that interrupt every 10 seconds so they can talk and say, wow, you saw that guy smile? He smiled. Huh. Wow. I know that he smiled there. Do you see his face? And man, I can't stand those YouTubers either. They drive me nuts. But this is at the end. So why do you leave those comments? And I don't take it personally. I just like, what is it? Are you so upset with your life that you feel that you have to write a comment like that? Are you just in such a bad place? I also see a lot of comments now where people write, yo, no one has time to watch this. Make it shorter. Cut it into like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And my answer to that is, yeah, I could cut it into 5, 10, or 15 minutes. But that's not the point of this channel. It probably would get more views. The algorithm probably would like it. We live in a world where people don't have an attention span, but we're bringing you cases. I'm not picking and choosing what you get to see in the hearing. You're going to see the entire thing. This is about showcasing the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if I were just to edit it out, it would not do that. It would be an entertainment channel. And that's not what I'm here for. So yeah, that's just not me. You can go to other channels if you want to see highlight reels. That's my soapbox for the day. It's strange. There's still a part of me that just felt bad for him, seeing him walk out of there. And I think there is something about the American psyche. I don't know if American, but about our psyche where there's this something about mobsters and mafia and whatever that we glamorize in some ways. And like organized crime, why it's somehow better, I don't know, but it is. I think some people view it that way. But really, they're just the same criminal mind as anyone else. Psychopaths, or I don't think this guy has the ability to feel empathy. I don't think he does. And he's really one of the worst to hurt people like this. To hurt, $5,000 at a time. Immigrants or illegal immigrants were working so hard for that money, to take that from them. This is not, you can't like justify it as some other Ponzi schemes where they say, oh, I'm taking money but the truth is, when you watch American Greed, so many of these Ponzi scheme people, they'll take money from anyone. They'll take it from their mother-in-law. They'll take it from the couple that literally saved for 40 years, so that they can retire. And that's why there's so many of them are simply just monsters. And so many of us probably have been scammed or know someone that's been scammed. But what still does irk me is that seeing the parole board release roaches, chomos, after they have served 2 years because, but then deny someone who serves 20 plus years on a sentence for a financial crime in his age, and it just doesn't. I don't get it. I don't get it. I just don't. It's like, but it is what it is. And again, thank you, Richard, for all the info. And with that, I'll let you go.